everyone, it's Kim and welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. If you're new to my channel, a special hello. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe before we get started because I'm here to tell you about 5 different books all about beef. The first book we're going to talk about is Raising Steaks by Betty Fusel. This is food history at its finest. In Raising Steaks, Betty Fusel saddles up for a spirited ride across America on the trail of our most iconic food, the steak. When we bite into a steak's charred crust and pink interior, we bite into contradictions that have branded our nation from the start. We taste the competing interests of British pastorals and Spanish ranchers that erupted in land wars between a wet weather East and a desert West. We savored the ideas of the wilderness and progress that clashed when we replaced buffalo with cattle and then cowboys with industrial machines. We savored the ideas of wilderness and progress that clashed when we replaced the buffalo with cattle and then cowboys with industrial machines. We witnessed rugged individualism and corporate technology collide when we bred, feed, slaughter, package, and distribute the animals we turn into meat. And we participate, like the cattlemen, chefs, feedlot operators, and scientists Fusel interviews, in the mythology that inspires cowboys to become technocrats and presidents to play cowboy. Raising Steak is a celebration of and an elegy to the uniquely American dream. So I actually got this book in the Strand bookstore in New York City probably 4 years ago. I have read it, don't you worry. This is from 2008. So this is definitely a little bit more dated of a book, which I can't believe it's crazy to say 2008, but then I realized I graduated high school in 2008. And then I start to wonder what I'm doing with my life, but here I am on YouTube talking about books, but it's okay. We're gonna be okay. This book is all about beef in the lens of America and the American frontier and our westward expansion. As noted on the back cover, there are conversations about replacing buffalo with cattle, what it did to not only the native indigenous people of the United States, but what it meant for pushing out the Spanish conquistadors and expanding farther west, farther west, farther west. It is a very interesting book. It is very historical. I could not find an audiobook for this, so if you are an audiobook avid, keep that in mind when you try and find this one. Betty Fusel has gone on to write other books about the American frontier and the expansion of American culture and food. So I highly like the author herself, and I like what she's talking about. So give this book a read if you want to understand how we came to be a beef country here in the United States. Now let's say you want to learn about steaks, but you don't want to just learn about American steaks. What is Kobe beef? What is like Wagyu beef? I highly recommend you read the book Steak, One Man's Search for the World's Tastiest Piece of Beef by Mark Schatzker. I read this book last year and it is just so much fun because he's just a regular guy, essentially just trying to understand how to pick out a good cut of meat. I don't know if you're like me, but I was largely influenced by the meats that my parents put on the table when I was growing up. So my mother loved lamb, but my father hated lamb. So like lamb was a special thing that never happened, but my dad loved a T-bone steak and mom hated it. So we rarely ate T-bone steaks, but being Persian, I grew up with lots of steak kebabs on the grill. So if you're anything like me, you probably didn't have a lot of exposure to these different cuts of meat growing up. And that's what I liked about this book Steak, because I think the author comes from one of those more humble American beginnings. So Mark Schatzker is an award-winning food and travel writer, so he is eloquent in this stuff. It's so easy to read his story. He travels the world. He goes on 4 different continents, he crosses thousands of miles, and he tries hundreds and different cuts of steaks, all to find the perfect piece. And he's just so passionate, but it's funny, it's enlightening. I found the book charming. It's definitely a palate cleanser. No pun intended, but palate cleanser. If you're going from food history and you want something a little bit more approachable and lighthearted and a little bit more contemporary, I really recommend Steak. It also introduced me to the fact that there are different breeds of cows and just things I don't even think about. But now when I go to a butcher counter, which obviously I've taken butchery classes and I'm very interested in this space, I take a moment of pride that I don't just point to like the only item I know in the case, and I'll try other cuts like bavette. And I'm really excited to one day cook with oxtail. I really loved this book and highly recommend. It's a short little guy, under 260 pages, I'd say. Now, on to the third book. Let's say you've read a bunch of steak books and you get to the butcher counter and you just freeze up. Or you go to a restaurant and you're still just not quite sure what book to order. Sorry. What steak to order. I recommend you bring with you For the Love of Beef, The Good and the Bad and the Future of America's Favorite Meat by Scott Lively. This is a 2020 release that came out towards the latter half of last year. This is a really great pocket guide. The author is the founder of one of the largest organic beef producers in the United States, and he explains to you the different labels and the best way to go to a restaurant and ask where your steak came from, whether your steak really is organic or if it's grass-fed, if it's corn-fed. And it's a really approachable book. Now, is the author someone who produces organic beef? Yes. But does he tell you he's eaten non-organic beef before? Yeah, he will. And I think that this book is put in blunt terms. I really also appreciate that there are somewhere in this book pictures of all of the stickers that you could see on your beef. I really enjoy it. Like how a steak is born. Like, let's just talk about how approachable this imagery can be. And he doesn't treat the reader like you're an idiot. He, if more than anything, sympathizes. Buying meat is confusing, especially when the country of origin, is not put on your steak. So you might think you're buying a USDA steak that came from the United States, but it might have actually been processed and slaughtered in Chile and then processed and repackaged here in the US. This is a great pocket book, under 200 pages. I read it in probably a day back in January. I really recommend this one. I don't know if the cover shows it that well, but there is a cow. Oh, there it is. Can you see it? Cow embossed on the cover, which just makes it a delight. I really enjoy little secrets like that. At first I thought I had put like a coffee stain on this book and I was really upset. And then I realized it's a cow. Okay, we've talked about the history of steaks and cows in America. We have talked about how to find the right steak, how to test the right steak, and what on earth is Kobe beef. These next two books are specialty books from some of the best talents in the steak and meat industry. First up, we have Glorious Beef, the LaFrida family and the evolution of the American meat industry. This is one of America's most celebrated butchers. I am only a couple pages in, but as you can see, this is a very short book. I mean, look at how impressive this guy looks with his giant sword. Knife, I cut up meat, roar. Clearly I shouldn't film 3 videos back to back on a Friday, but it's okay. So what is this book about? It is an insightful and engaging insider's look at the real story of the meat industry from master butcher Pat LaFrida. And LaFrida talks about how his grandfather and his father, how they build this butcher shop, how they grow, how they stay in business in a world of mass commodification of food. But he's also going to teach you the best beef and the best steaks to buy and why. I can't say too much about it, obviously, because I'm still reading it, but I am super, super excited about it. It's gotten a lot of positive press, and I think it's important to understand the butcher shop when you want to buy a steak. I'm sure most of us go to the grocery store to buy our steaks, but hopefully reading a book like Glorious Beef will encourage you to go to your local butcher and understand the mastery and talent it takes for them to not only cut the meat, but know the knowledge, every nook and cranny. A honorable mention book that didn't quite fit in this world, but I want to highly recommend is Camus Davis's book, Killing It and Education. Camus Davis leaves the world of advertising and writing to become one of those most prominent female butchers in the United States. It is also one of the books in the exclusive charcuterie box that I have on the crowdfunding campaign for Read It and Eat. So if you want a book and a box, if you want a Read It and Eat box where you are going to get 2 different types of charcuterie meats, a little cutting board and a delicious read, and some nuts to make your charcuterie board, I will have the crowdfunding campaign down below, which will be live through the end of March. Now, the final book, another 2021 release, is Made from Scratch. And this is the story of the legendary success of Texas Roadhouse by Kent Taylor. So Texas Roadhouse is a steak chain here in the United States, which I admit, I don't think I've actually ever been to, but my mom really likes Texas Roadhouse. It's written from the founder, Kent Taylor, the incredible made from scratch success of Texas Roadhouse. I also haven't read this one yet, so I'm gonna read the inside cover. Please forgive me. In Made from Scratch, business maverick Kent Taylor tells the legendary story of Texas Roadhouse, and in the process reveals its recipe for success. embracing unorthodox business practices. Because isn't it a little unusual for a company to do almost no advertising? Is it wild to give away free peanuts and rolls and keep prices low, even as costs rise? Or to keep the menu basically the same since the restaurant opened? Does it fly in the face of reason for a CEO to dress like he's participating in the landscaping crew? So in Texas Roadhouse, I guess the crew there are called roadies, and it's really going to be talking about his coming up story and how he serves these hand-cut steaks, fall off the bone ribs, and made from scratch sides, ice cold beer, and irresistible fresh baked bread. I am a sucker for a fresh baked roll, which I know I shouldn't eat because I'm gluten-free. Like, gluten just gives me a stomachache. But I love a good steak, and I can't wait to read this book, and I'm sure, ooh, would you guys be interested if I went to Texas Roadhouse and like filmed my experience eating a steak? I don't think you want to watch me eat, but like going there, going with Dan, experiencing, you know, the free peanuts, the free rolls, and all of the ambiance with it. Let me know if you're interested down below. So there you go. Those are 5 books all about steaks. And let me know in the comments below if you're hungry. What's your favorite steak cut? Do you not eat steak? Totally fine if you don't. Please don't come for me, PETA. Let me know if you're interested in any of the books I mentioned, and if you're interested in purchasing them, I do have my affiliate links to bookshop.org down below. And on your way down, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you want to keep up with what I'm reading right now, I also have links in the description box to my Instagram and the Storygraph page, along with Read It and Eat and the crowdfunding campaign. I hope you're well. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.